Holy sh*, this build has some f***ing damage, bro. This build has damage. Guys, and welcome to today's video. Today we're going to be playing Alkaiser's Mind Over Matter Ball Lightning character. As always, I don't make these builds. I'm not the theory build guy. I'm not the creator. I just like to see a build that looks fun, play it, and give my thoughts and experiences, and then a bit of a guide at the end. This build has basically been one of the best builds I've ever played in PoE. The damage the build can produce is utterly insane. We're doing 20 to 30 million damage. It absolutely has destroyed all content. Oh, tier 16 ultimatums, whether it's stand in the circle, slay the enemies, guard the thing, everything has been utterly melted. You can choose to go GMP and shoot out everything and tuck yourself in a corner and pure survive off regen. You can put in slower prod and nuke every single rare. There's just a survivability that is super nice, and there is just a pure clear speed and a pure satisfaction that the build brings, and I've super enjoyed it. Blight League, it's done every single type of blight, and the best thing about it is you get all your scout towers up, you just drill down all of the balls down the line and it murders everything. It's done 10-way Maven fights. It's nuked all of the bosses in the 10 ways without any problems. It's cleared huge, like we say, huge blight areas. It's done the Maven. This was the first ever time me fighting the Maven, and although I butchered the memory phase and I wasn't too sure what was going on or exactly how to stand to get the most amount of DPS out, it was nuking the brain basically instantly. It was killing Maven, and yeah, it absolutely destroyed all of the bosses in there and everything. And I'm sure as I got better at the build mechanically and I got a bit more used to it, I could push even more damage out. But it really did nuke all of the content that I threw at it. The Maven Guardian fight crushed all of that stuff. That was super fun. And that's the first time I've ever done this. So obviously, yeah, it's done all of the Shaper Guardians. It's absolutely nuked tier, you know, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 bosses. It's done Breach Lords all stacked together. Again, it's done multiple 10-way fights. Syndicate, it absolutely just bullets through all of the Syndicate characters. Any sort of map boss is just not even a thing. It just gets just gets absolutely chunked down. Temple bosses, shooting through Delve, it's super good for Delve. It's kind of how I leveled a portion of the build, was I got 30k sulfite on a character. Once I hit the end of the campaign, I just went into Delve and shot myself through it, and it just chucks everything down there, cruises through Delve. Any sort of Delve boss I've thrown at it gets nuked. A Boxeth is who? Where's he gone, mate? Where's he gone? Tier 16 Liches, Spires melted, everything just getting completely crushed and melted. Drox, even with all of his banners and damage reduction up, beamed down no problem. Metamorphs, not even a thing, just absolutely blown away. Again, guys trying to hide in his hut, blown away. Vision of Justice, blown away. Hydra, blown away. Elder Guardians, I was actually like having to wait for them because I'd killed them, then they were doing some attacks, then they were rephasing. There's just so much damage on this build, and it's absolutely just been a super blast to play, and I'm so glad I discovered it. So thanks Alkaiser for throwing this build my way, and I've absolutely loved playing it. You've got the Crusader, boom, absolutely melted. We have got as well the creme de la creme going on here. We have got the first time I've ever done this. This is GGZII, Shaper, Uber Elder, Chayula, and the Cortex boss all at once on a rare map. Confession, I died twice because I thought GGZII would have had a reflect phase, so I was kind of patiently waiting for like, oh, is the reflect mirrors going to pop up? I don't want to be throwing out all of my damage in case they pop up. She doesn't have reflect, so actually I could have absolutely nuked this one as well. And Chayula surprised me. He came out like a bat out of hell. And the Cortex boss, bro, that boss is so rare. When it was in the middle of the arena with everything going on, I didn't even know what was going on. But let me tell you this, it did it. And a superior player would absolutely cruise through this. But yeah, it tackled basically the hardest fight in the game, in my opinion. What else has it done? It's done a 5-way Legion fight, and it just dunks on all of the bosses. It's done all kinds of map bosses. It's done bloody, yeah, the delves. It's done a full simulacrum fight, Red Elder, Uber Elder, Cortex bosses. It's done the memory bosses, the full Cortex boss. It's also done Uber Elder, obviously. It's done the Syndicate boss. It's done Chayula. It's done all of the 4-way Breach bosses in the same room. Legion League, get your stuff going, shoot it out everywhere with GMP. Absolutely nukes through all of the Legion content. Awaken a 9 Cirrus. Bro, I'm shocking at Cirrus. That fight is terrible. Can't tell what is going on. Died once too. I don't even know what's going on. Texture streaming. Who knows what's happening in that fight. But it's done it. And it's absolutely destroyed all content. And it's just been a pleasure to play. I'm now going to talk you through the gear and everything that it took to get it to go to this stage. But man, super pleased with it. Smash a like on the video. Let's get into the guide. And again, thanks to Alkaiser. His link will be in the description for providing this build and giving me, a player, a chance to experience something super cool and new and unique, like the full Shaper Elder boss fights all jammed together, because without a build this strong, I probably wouldn't have been able to do it. So yeah, thanks for that. We're going to chat about how to level the build and then how to gear it, and yeah, just have a chat. So in we go. So how I leveled the build was pretty straightforward. I got some eye level like 1 to 3 wands. They drop off the very first boss you kill, or get them from the vendors, or trade. I got a metallic fossil and chucked it on the wand. It was as simple as that. You'll start to see it roll lightning to spells, lightning damage +1 to spells, lightning to spells. And as I leveled up throughout the game, I just put on new wands that were higher level with more metallic stuff. I used a leather cap, some wonderless boots, a Karai ward, a resistance string of servitude. It's just generic leveling gear, right? It was nothing complicated. I'm not saying this is the perfect way to level the build. I'm just saying how I did it. I ended up using Orb of Storms, Ellie Focus, added lightning damage with Onslaught, and I would then stand inside of that Orb of Storms, and I would then do Stormblast Mine. Each time I would throw a Stormblast Mine, I would basically proc Orb of Storms, and as a result you would get increased damage and it would shoot out, and yeah, it was a big chunk of damage. We had that in a tabula, and that's how I leveled to level 38. We also had Clarity and Skitterbots as an aura, and that's what we did. Once we'd gone to level 38 and we were playing Ball Lightning, we had, you know, all of that stuff kind of going. We had Arcane Cloak with Ball Lightning, Ellie Focus, Spell Echo, Archmage, Lightning Pen, Slower Proj, GMP. You can also use Unleash. You can use a few other things just to chuck anything in whilst you're leveling, basically. Now let's talk about the gear. Now this is not a cheap build. I'm not saying it's a cheap build. The reason I chose to do this build was I had a lot of currency left. I wanted to sell off my other characters, and I wanted a build that could destroy the end game, and I could scale it a lot, and it would give me a reason to play and keep playing. Because then every time I got an Exile or I farmed a bit of currency, I thought, I can invest that. So I'll tell you everything about the gear. Let's start with the flasks. Movement speed flask. A diamond flask of the order for crit chance. If you've unveiled one of the flasks, you'll actually be able to craft crit chance on the bench here if you've done your mastermind. A bottled faith, which is, yep, obviously it's super expensive. It's at the moment it's 13 exalts. It's a good roll, high base crit, good duration. Now I use a dying sun. Alkaiser uses a quartz flask for like spell block and dodge, and you can also put remove freeze on there. I don't even run a remove freeze. I just decided for this build, I haven't really died ever to freeze, and I want to have fun and I want to enjoy myself, and so I was like, I'm putting on a dying sun. You don't have to put this on, but you can see if you run GMP and you use your dying sun, there's a lot of proj. And that's good fun. You know, I'm playing this as my last build to enjoy myself and have fun. You can swap that out to a defensive one if you want, but it was 20C for the flask. I thought, hey, why not? And I got a high AoE roll. So the staff is a pledge of hands. This gives greater spell echo, 100% max mana and spell damage. I also have the enchant from Harvest, which gives 1% AoE per 4 quality, and I 28 qualityed it off a hillock inside of the Mastermind. It gives me more AoE, and it is 6 linked. Inside of it, I'm running Ball Lightning, Ellie Focus, Spell Echo, Archmage, Awakened Lightning Pen or Lightning Pen, and GMP, and you also swap that to Slower Proj. Bear in mind, you have so much damage that when mapping, you're not really going to need to swap to Slower Proj for anything. Just if you want maybe tier 16 ultimatums and really get them those rares out of the way instantly, or you want to just nuke some bosses, put in Slower Proj. But that is the setup. You can also go Awakened Spell Echo, but that's like 20 exalts. I didn't have that. And obviously you could get all of these skills to 21, 23 quality if you really wanted to, right? So there's chance to scale, but that's the staff. The helmet. Now the helmet is a bit confusing because the helmet basically means that every time you get a piece of gear that's like 40 fire res, 40 cold res, it's not actually 40 fire res and 40 cold res because it's been reduced by those numbers that you're seeing on screen, those 40 and 38, and the lightning as well. You can also val these and knock off one of them. Like you could knock off one of the minus reses, because we don't need the increased maximum ES, so you could knock that off technically. Now I went for, again, pure memes of extra proj, and Ball Lightning fires an extra proj. I believe Alkaiser has Ball Lightning AoE, but I've supplemented that with the Dying Sun. I've also, got the extra proj. So suddenly we're firing 9 proj, right? And it's just wild when you just sit in the corner of an ultimatum or in a map doing a legion. It blitzes everything. It's fun. For me, the game's about fun, and I found it to be really fun. Now, at the time of purchase, this was a 6 exalt helmet. I've seen some come up for 3 exalts, 2 exalts. I've seen some come up for 15 exalts. I don't really know the price, to be honest, but that's what it was. Obviously, you want to get the highest maximum mana you can do in life. That's going to help, but it's also going to affect your resistances. Please note, Sniper's Mark, Arcanist Brand, Blade Blast, and Wave of Conviction. Basically, what you're going to be doing is putting down your brands on top of like a real big boss. You don't need to do this when mapping. It's going to basically drop down Blade Blast, which unnerves them, so they're going to take more spell damage, and then it's going to also do Wave of Conviction, which is minus 15 res. So basically your big kind of rotation is going to be Arcane Cloak, Sigil of Power, put down these, press all your pots, and then nuke with Slower Proj, and that's kind of how it works, right? Next is an Xeri's Foible. This gives items and gems have reduced attributes. It gives max mana regen and max mana and maximum mana again. So what I did was I put on 20 catalysts. This was expensive, but honestly, I thought it was worth it. It gives you 4% more max mana, 20 flat mana. It also helped bump up my mana regen, which is hugely important on this build. For some stats for you to aim for, I had 8k mana and it felt okay. Once I got to 10k plus, at which I'm currently at 10.8k mana, started to feel really good. Also allocated Mind Drinker. Mind Drinker gives 18% mana and recover mana on kill, which is huge for mapping. The main chest piece, which is a Cloak of Defiance. This also, through playing, has had the Harvest body enchant max mana per 2 quality, and it's 28 quality, so it's giving me a bit more flat mana. And because we have so many increases to mana on the tree, you know, you get a bit more mana for it. You're obviously aiming for the highest flat mana you can do. Honestly, evasion and ES literally doesn't matter, to be honest. So yeah, and it gives Mind Over Matter. So Mind Over Matter is basically you're taking a chunk of damage from your mana, and that's good because we have a ton of mana. Inside here is Arcane Cloak, Increased Duration, Second Wind, Arcane Surge, Divergent Righteous Fire, and Smoke Mine. Regular Righteous Fire works as well, but Divergent gives a bit more increased spell damage, so I did that. I bought a level 1, it was like 20C. I put 20 GCPs on it, and apparently this thing costs 1.8 exalts. I don't know why, because it didn't cost anything like that. We can sustain Righteous Fire, as you can see. It's completely fine, there's no problem. So next we have rings. Now I don't know the price of these rings, I honestly don't. I'll tell you how I made them. I chaos spammed one of these rings to get 2 reses with mana and a craftable life roll and mana regen. I don't think those would be incredibly expensive. It's just basic reses, life, mana regen, and mana. I've put 20 quality catalysts on them. You can also do this before if it's white. You can put just 4 catalysts on and it will quality it up. It will take a lot less. Do note, which I didn't know, using an annul orb removes catalysts, so that's an expensive mistake. It then had an open slot, so I Crusader exalted it and I got spell damage. The other ring is exactly the same. Mana, resistances, life, and this time I tried to Crusader exalt something better. I got like recovery from life leech, which is pointless. Ideally, you know, I could have got anything better from the Crusader mod pool, but I didn't, unfortunately. So you're basically looking for life, mana, res, which doesn't sound that expensive, but actually, I'll be honest with you, trying to find a lot of res, mana, and life is expensive, and it is worth getting mana, because if you look here, this only has 73 mana, but it's giving me like 800 mana because of all of our rolls, right? Our gloves, these are probably the weakest part of the build. They have the Inferno kill on kill enchant, which basically means there's like a big fireball that comes down, and honestly, that seemed to be quite useful, so I kept it. Obviously, that's not needed. I put these on some fingerless gloves, and I did the same process. I chaos spammed them, I got life and mana, and a res. I crafted a res, and then I Crusader exalted because I had an open slot, and I got global crit chance, which is pretty nice because we are a crit build. You know, they're not the best gloves. Ideally, you could get more life, you could get a lot better resistances, which would make you not need as many on your rings. Then here I could get mana regen on this ring. Like I'm literally missing like 80 mana regen on each of these rings, which is massive. So ideally, big mana regen would help. I could probably improve these gloves over time, but that's what I ended up with. Inside is Fortify, Ancestral Call, Vigilant Strike, and Clarity. Basically, this is Vigilant Strike. You whack it. Ancestral Calls around 3 people. It can't be evaded, and it gives you Fortify, which lasts a long time. This is like an Alkaiser hardcore thing. I've personally used this like once or twice. This setup is a complete waste for me. I probably could use something better. Maybe you in the comments could figure out what I could use instead. Because I also don't use this really, because I'm not a hardcore player, I could also do an Abyssal socket craft and use Abyssal sockets, do the same process, hope I get life and mana and some resists, and then I'd also have an Abyssal socket where I could put in flat mana, all this kind of stuff, right? The boots, life and mana, big thing here is the enchant. I would say the enchant is mandatory. Basically, it's 70% mana regen if you've cast a skill. Now, if you can get 70% mana regen on your ring, you can obviously get rid of this and, you know, not waste your time in the lab. But I couldn't find the rings. Honestly, I couldn't. So I ran the lab. It took about 4 attempts with Twice Enchanted to get it. They're not perfect. They could have 30 move speed. They could have Can't Be Frozen and Chilled, which would then allow me to keep the Dying Sun and still have the defense. But trying to find boots with resistance, high life and mana, and movement speed was a pain. If we do a quick search, this currently costs, if we look, with 19 move speed, and we go into trade, we try to find something similar. You know, these are 64 mana. These are probably an Exalt, maybe like they're an Exalt pair of boots. something like that. These have the enchant. These are 5x. They're probably about an exalt to 4 exalts, depending, honestly. Or you might have a pair of boots lying around. But yeah, obviously these give mana. You can see here another like 700 mana. Now the belt, I'll probably put a clip on screen of how I made this belt. The belt was expensive, but it's not that difficult to make. I'm going to try and make another one when I've got currency. I basically had Stygian Vice with AoE whilst you have Arcane Surge, which we always have. An eye level 86 one. I got that belt and I put on a Redeemer influence and I rolled mana recovery rate as the only like Redeemer mod. I then went and got a Crusader belt with recovery rate tier 1. Doesn't matter what eye level, just get tier 1 recovery rate. And then I Awakener orbed the Crusader belt onto the Vice, and you just pray you get good mods. Now here I got stun recovery, which is bad, melee fizz, which is bad, and I got a low mana roll. So really I could annul this belt and I could knock off, if I'm being real, the mana recovery, the stun recovery, the physical damage attacker and the life, and then I could like triple exalt this and put back on the life or the mana. But I'm not that brave. You'd probably be better to just make another one and sell this. But it honestly cost about 4 exalts to make the belt. You can also put catalysts on there as well. Ideally, I'd get resistances on there. I could have got lightning damage as a Crusader mod, which is why I rolled the Crusader. But the main thing is mana recovery rate, cooldown recovery rate, as high as you can go. The tree, if we move on to the tree, it's all mana. You can follow the path of building. It's all self-explanatory. The only thing I've done of note was the cluster jewels, which is prismatic heart and scintillating idea with lightning damage. And I chaos spam these myself. I made them myself. They're not difficult to make. And then this gives pen, LE damage and res, and each little node gives a bit of mana regen and lightning damage. In the slot I put max life, max mana and proj speed. And the last one, which is a super big node, do get this, is 80% mana regen while stationary. This was probably like one of my last passives to get, and I probably should have gotten here early to get it because it's really good. Also 15% max mana. And it is important because our spells are costing like 4k mana. So to have a lot of mana regen is important. That's why you can spam. So the last thing is we have one of these Balbala Timeless Jewels. I just bought one and divined it. I ended up getting attack and cast speed, proj damage, frenzy charge on kill, crit chance. That's it. I've also got one in my stash tab which had more crit chance. It had stun recovery. Do note as well, you can get stunned on this build. So what Alkaiser does is he uses a stun recovery essence on his gloves. I just really couldn't be bothered because the amount of times I've got stunned is so small. I'm not playing hardcore. If I die once due to a stun and I've got my Pantheon, you know, it is what it is. But yeah, if you're playing hardcore, you obviously want to get a bit more stunned. So the reason you're using this jewel, by the way, is because it gives each node dexterity. Like 4 decks, 2 decks, 4 decks, 2 decks. And that can be difficult to get around the dexterity requirements. The last one I had did have 20 decks on one of the nodes, which helped. But I was able to swap to this jewel because I had leveled up so much that I could get decks here. And again, this is max life, mana, and some reses. Ideally, if you've got perfect gear, these jewels that are like max life mana, instead of having a resistance, it is a crit multi-jewel. You could technically have 1, 2, 3 crit multi-jewels in here as well. So that would help with damage. The last thing is the Watcher's Eye, which is just damage taken from mana before clarity. Now, obviously, we have a huge mana pool. If you have the ability to like get life gained on hit with vitality and clarity because you've got a mad budget, you could do that, and you could run level 1 vitality because you've got a shit ton of mana. I obviously just bought the Clarity one. It cost like 1.5 exalts. Just divined it to 10%. But that's pretty much the build. I'll be honest, it's one of the probably, if not the best build I've ever played. The damage it has, the survivability, just the general playstyle for mapping is so fun. I would say it is competing for the Void Fletcher Eye Shot build I did way back with all of my crazy dodge boots, like those mirror tier dodge boots I made. The helmets with, the helmet was crazy. Had like a mirror tier Watcher's Eye. This build, honestly, pretty much is just as fun and as good, and I can still see scalability. I can get awakened gems, I can get more mana regen, I could get a much better belt, stun recovery. It's been one of, if not the best build I've played, and I wanted to share it with you. So hopefully this has been useful to you. If it has, give a thumbs up, give a comment. Thanks to Al Kaiser for showing me this build. Because without his videos, I wouldn't have known this build existed, and I wouldn't have tried it, and I wouldn't have had so much fun in the league. So thanks to Al Kaiser for doing this build and showcasing it, because I've had an absolute blast and it's made my league really fun. As always, I'm making PoE guides, I'm making Gears videos, PC building videos, product reviews, loads of stuff on the channel. So if you're new, consider subscribing, liking, maybe becoming a member, following me at twitch.tv/GGZ. I'm live pretty much every day. Hopefully my voice was okay for this video. I'm currently recovering from some flu. But thanks very much for tuning in and watching. I really appreciate it. Do ring the bell when you subscribe. Only 5% of you ring that bell, and then you'll probably miss videos. But thanks again for tuning in. And also, just a side note, thanks for all of the positivity on the PoE videos I've been doing. They've been getting really good viewership and comments, and I thank you for that. I really do. It's made the league more enjoyable and fun, knowing that there's a bit of an audience there. So that is how the build functions and plays. I've had an absolute blast. Literally, you just get in a corner, you drop everything, and you just rail out tons and tons of damage. It's just been really, really fun. So thank you.